Good evening and welcome. I'm Hailey Coxon and this is Mountain Memories episode 12 on the Spirit of Motorsport TV. Welcome those of you that have tuned in already, all 40 plus of you. We've had some comments already. Hello to Bev Smith from Church Stretton. Good evening to you. Mo Chain says hi. Linny Ritzy, hello to you from sunny Fleetwood. Roy Chambers says good evening, guys and girls. Girls, I like that. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Roy Huller, hi all from Solihull in the Midlands. Keep those comments coming in. Brian Spooner, hello to you. Good evening from you. He's here early from the West Midlands. I like that, Brian, though. Good commitment. And Roger Barnes, hello to you from damp Cheshire. It's quite nice here in Liverpool this evening. Well, thank you, those of you that have tuned in already. Remember, remind your friends, tag them in the comments, remind them that we've gone live. We're here for the next hour, and we have a couple of great guests joining us this evening. Before they do join us, though, we'll obviously have the great Roy Moore and Barry Wood coming in from the Isle of Man live this evening. Before we do, just to remind you, we love to hear your comments and your questions. So if anything pops up this evening, it's a Southern 100 special. Please do send over your questions and we will fire them at the guests as soon as we can. Now, we do have some pictures to share with you as well this evening. We love to see you getting involved in the chat. So fire your comments our way and let us know where you're tuning in from. We love to know what part of the world you're coming in from. And yeah, do share away with your friends. Do not forget that one. So tonight's special is the Southern 100. Now, this weekend, 10th of July, would have been those great races, the friendly races as they are known. And Roy Moore and Barry would have been posting this week on their private Facebook group, Mountain Memories, lots of great pictures and stories and memories on there from the Southern 100 that would have been happening this weekend. Now, the borders have lifted. There are some restrictions with applications to get on the island, but you can get over there for this great event. The races sadly aren't happening, but there's lots of stuff still going on. So the boys will be there, as will our guests this evening, George Peach and Phil Tubman. Now, before they do join us, let's invite Mr. Roy Moore and Barry Wood to join in the Mountain Memories chat and share their memories of the Southern 100. Good evening, boys. How the devil are we?
Oh, not too bad. Scratching about as normal. Yeah, we've been quite hectic since the last time we were on Tuesday ago. And just talking to Barry there, it's a bit disappointing. You were just saying, Barry, when you were coming down the bypass or getting a trip down the south, how disappointing it is not to see all the tented village and all the paddock.
Yeah, never far from our thoughts. You know, and normally by now the paddock would be starting to build up nicely and there'd be probably people out putting stuff up on the course and fencing and grandstands and all the different things which you get before any road race, but certainly at the Southern 100 this time of year. And it's not happening this time again. But we can talk about it. At least we can talk about what's happened in the past, and we look forward to the future, don't we?
Yeah, look forward to the future, and the past will be the two guests that we've got lined up, Phil Tobin, George Peach, who have been heavily involved. They're going to tell us a few bits and pieces about how that side of it works, but we've got our own observations too. I'm fortunate enough to have been involved in most of them, not totally. I think Jeff Cannell always claimed that as well, the Thursday afternoon. But regarding getting down for practice, it was a kind of a compulsory statement made by Uncle Jack that we're off down south to the Southern 100. I didn't know what it meant. I was fully aware of why it was created because we'd been to the 1954 Manx Grand Prix weigh-in. And in that particular year, George Costain and Derek Ennett, who'd we'd witnessed weighing in at Farragher's and Ashton's, their mounts for that race, both won. Derek Ennett won the 350 and George Costain, after John Hartle dropped out on the last lap, had won the 500. And they were both south-based, Castletown-based. So it was a kind of a kickstart then into getting something organised. And they were responsible for gathering all the people together from the south to see if they could devise a course and then run a meeting down there. And Barry has not only watched it, he's actually competed in it as well.
Just saying, Roy, about the fact that the Billown Circuit came into being. There was a new bypass road created, wasn't it, which sort of, with the traffic going further south, bypassed Castletown altogether. So I suppose without that, it wouldn't have been so easy to create a road race down there.
No. I mean, there's pictures in the tourist board of double-decker buses trying to get through the narrow gap at the glue pot and then swinging it round the Smelt Monument, is it, in Castletown Square, and then another little tight entrance, then up onto Farrance Way and out past Castle Rushen and the Buchan School, and then that was the only way they could get through. So the creation of the bypass, and we did show this with a post on last week or this week of Nigel Warren virtually heading the pack on the bypass. And that meant that you turned right at Alexander Bridge, past Castletown Bridge, and you missed old Castletown out. So it was an ideal combination, really, to get a thing. And it must be one of the circuits, Barry, that has not had any alteration to it.
It hasn't had any alterations at all. It's exactly the same distance now as it was back in 1955. The only real thing is that the road surface is obviously much better than it was, but there was never any chicanes or anything like that brought in. Even the major roadworks, there was nothing major changed. It's as it was, and I think that's part of the charm of it as well, which adds to the history. And even if you look at the old results and the old times, you can still draw comparisons with today because it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Just saying about the circuit not going through Castletown, that would have been fantastic.
Would have been. It would have been a bit like a mini Monaco.
If they were going through there, I would reapply for my race entry. I'll tell you what, they done a similar thing in Ireland in a place called Dunmanway, where it went right through a narrow village square, and that would have been fantastic. Yeah. But we won't argue about the Billown course, one of the best road courses in there.
And some pretty special spectator spots as well, boys. Here we've had a comment here, which is a great one too. Before we invite the gents into the studio with us, Gail Core says, "Have a great show, guys. Love the Southern 100. One of the best ran road race meetings I've ever been to." You hear some great comments in reference to that. So, Royster, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, it is, and I don't know who was involved in the early days. I mean, it's all down in the history. Phil Edge put together a terrific book, not only of the results, but of the history of it. And the story that I always remember, I'll never ever forget, is how they measured the course. And it was a chap who was in the control tower at Ronaldsway Airport, going back to 1954-55. It wasn't all the technical stuff they've got now. It was somebody looking out for planes and guiding them in. Big Silver City, what else? Cambrian Airways and all that around those early days. Big wayfarers coming in with tourists. And he was part and parcel of the committee, and they all got together. The original kind of concept of it, I think, was discussed in a place called the Ship Inn. Sadly, that's no longer now there. But they all got together and they devised it. They had to apply to the ACU for license, etc., anything like that was required to get the circuit certified for fit for racing and measured and everything. And there wasn't a housing estate that there is now at Ballarlock, I think it's called, where you go through to get onto the bypass. So that acted as the paddock. And of course, the camping facilities are not all that much different. They were in the fields, which are there still to this day, and they utilised them. But the thing was, when they announced that they were going to have another meeting on the Isle of Man, apart from the TT, the Grand Prix, and this kind of short circuit, all the top men came over straight away. Charlie Freeman, Bob McIntyre, they all said, "Oh, that's handy, another trip to the Isle of Man, see what the course is like." Circuit, what would it be now? It's always, you always get a public warning if you say the TT circuit, because it's not, it's a course. How would your views be on whether it's Billown course or Billown circuit?
Billown Circuit tends to be the thing, although I would say the course, but I don't think there's any right or wrong with that myself. Doesn't matter.
The circuit seems to suit the shortness of the track, doesn't it? Because it's just over 4 miles. Is that right? So it kind of feels like it's
7.5, is it?
4.25, and it means basically that anybody can watch a race, and every couple of minutes, 2 or 3 minutes, the leaders come round. So there's never any shortage of action.
Yeah. And
certainly I know people maybe who've got slightly disillusioned with the TT in latter years who'd never been to the Southern 100, and I had recommended it. They went down to see the Southern 100, came over for the first time, and now they're totally smitten by the Southern. They come every single year. So not just the circuit, the whole nature of it, the fact that it's maybe in the evening, we were just talking about this before, little things that the club do, which they've always done, like when a rider signs on to compete there, you get all your paperwork and you get a little book for 10 free cups of tea and stuff like this. You wouldn't get that in many other places, probably no other places. And it's the same faces year after year as well, you know, not just in the paddock, but around the chippy vans, the burger van. I saw a lady recently in ShopRite, I know her face was somewhere, and I couldn't think. It was a few days later. But she makes the hot dogs down at Castledown Corner every year. But we're seeing them in a different place. Just everything. And then, of course, the presentation due on the Thursday night is in the open air, Castledown Square. Not that I've been for a number of years because of work, but we always did go. And a great event.
Great location. Yeah. So we've had quite a lot of comments here already. Big hellos as well. John Kashirski says, good afternoon all from the States. Good afternoon, John. Chris Handy says, good evening from Hampshire. Bill Davey, looking forward to this one. John O'Sullivan says, good evening from Dublin. Gareth Leonard Andrew says, good evening from South Africa. Andy Cruz says, the friendly races, no better description. I stole that from Barry. I like that this week on your group. We also had a question here, boys, before we do bring the gents in. Bev Smith said, we recently had the sad anniversary of Joey Dunlop's passing. What were your fondest memories of him? Because you would have seen him on the Manx Road.
On the Isle of Man or anywhere?
Whatever jumps out for you, I guess.
Joey in his younger days, or certainly in his early days on the Isle of Man. The first time I ever saw Joey was in TT practice. It would be 1976. I had heard of him because as a Ray McCulloch fan, Joey was Ray's up-and-coming rival. And I saw this rider with long straggly hair come down at the bedstead, very, very fast. And he looked very reckless at the time. And we sort of said, he's not even going to make the grid on race day. But it was just that he was fast, you see. When you seen him, he one scene never forgotten in his early days, you know, with his long hair and his green and black leathers. And the first year we done the Southern, now I was part of this. I remember when he come and done the Southern and he immediately did well. And he went up to JB Airfield at the weekend. There was a short circuit race on. But Joey had won that many trophies at Billown and chucked them all in the back of the van. So when they opened, I was there at this time, they opened the back doors of the van. All the Southern 100 trophies clattered out onto the road at Jersey. But Joey is, what the hell, you know, shove them back in there.
Dead on.
Aye. That's what I would remember, certainly. And another time, at the first time I went to the Ulster Grand Prix, 1980, Joey had broken down further up the course, and the word went around Joey was walking back. And right opposite us, there was a gap of about 6 foot in the hedge. And you could see all the cameras flashing up the road as he approached. And just when he got up across from us, for about 2 seconds, hundreds of cameras flashed as Joey walked past, and then it all went dark again. Never forget that. And that was the year he was brought in by Heron Suzuki to back Graham Crosby up in his Formula One efforts. And Joey led the race for 5 laps, smashed the lap record, but he had to let Graham Crosby win that race. So on the penultimate lap, Joey come round with his arm on his knee to let Crosby go past, and then he pulled in behind him. So Crosby won the race, Joey did the job, but everybody knew who the hero of the day was. Well, you could talk all night about Joey, really.
That's one special we've not done yet, isn't it?
Yeah. So well, yeah, that's the whole thing about it. Yeah, he arrived at a time period when we had to work for a living, so we didn't get too involved in that period of time. But obviously, he got sneaked off for race days, and when he did his Jubilee win, that was pretty special. You knew that you had somebody special then. And then the stories that were emerging about this, he wasn't a character really, he was just Joey Dunlop. He didn't have any, he just went about his life the way that he wanted to. He wasn't abusive to fans. I mean, he kind of thing, but he wasn't open-armed. He just wanted to work on his bikes, and whether it be down at the Southern in the field, tinkering away on a 250, 350 TZ. And then when he got the works contracts later on, they tried to reform him a little bit by making him get his hair cut and stupid things like that, and probably changed him a bit. And he looked daft, really, to be fair, in a Rothmans jacket. And that was a period of time, but he was getting paid. And I think that the biggest tribute that was ever made about Joey Dunlop was that Honda certainly just absolutely adored him and appreciated what he'd done for them by riding his bikes after his initial kind of foray in foreign parts with the opposition. And he stuck loyal to them. And I don't think he appreciated, and it's been mentioned, how much he was thought of. He'd earned a good living from it with good wages, and did what he had to do. A few accidents here and there, which knocked him back a bit, but certainly from day one to the very end, he was just Joey Dunlop. And when you think about that statement, it's a great thing to say, isn't it? I met him a couple of times. There's one particular occasion. It was a wedding. Huey the plasterer's daughter got married, and Joey and Linda were invited over, and probably got a few words out of him because I was doing the DJ on that night and stayed behind to do a bit of rock and roll for Linda and her mates to dance to, and that was appreciated. And we had a bit of a natter, but nothing too dramatic. And he was then just Joey Dunlop.
Great stuff. Thank you, boys. Great question, Bev. Thank you very much. Andy Karush says, Joey, notorious for being last minute, turning up at a race, didn't like to be bothered by the hordes that surrounded him once at the paddock. Had the pleasure of meeting him in the local with Davey Wood, and a short chat, very shy and quiet. Thank you, Andy. John Kashirski says, I searched YouTube for the Billown Circuit, watched the 96 Southern 100 last evening. It was great. Robert Jackson, Tim Leach, and several others. Then I had to buy the Southern 100, 60 years of the friendly races downloaded. Just amazing. Great, John. Thank you. Now, off the back of that, then, shall we invite the great George Peach and Mr. Phil Taubman into the studio?
Sounds a good idea to me.
Good evening, gents, coming from the Southern 100 offices down there in the south of the island. Hello.
Hi. Hello.
Good evening, campers. All right.
Yeah,
I see it's in its usual tidy state down there, boys.
Yeah, as usual. We can't afford a cleaner.
I'm sure that. So
if I could just put you right about the first Southern 100 1955, the reason for starting it you had correct, but it actually started in the Viking, which at that time was called the Castletown Hotel. That was because the Ennett family lived in there.
Yeah.
The Ennett family ran the Viking, ran the Castletown Hotel. So it was Sunday morning meetings in the kitchen. And if, for whatever reason, Theo Watterson, who was an air traffic controller, had to work on the Sunday morning, they would all go up to the airport and sit in the control tower while he was at work and have the meetings at the control tower at the airport.
Lovely stuff. Yeah, but it was a chain they measured the course with, wasn't it?
It was, down the centre of the road. George Chastain and Derek Ennett, and I think Jimmy Linsky was involved as well. But they went round one Sunday morning very early, and measured the centre of the road right the way around with a 22 yards, isn't it, in a chain?
Yeah, cricket pitch.
Yeah.
That's it. And the first paddock, incidentally, was at Castletown Football Stadium.
There you go.
And the bikes came from the stadium down onto the bypass for the start, and at the end of the race, they turned around at the end of the bypass here and were convoyed backwards back up to the stadium.
Yeah. Now, there's a fact that we didn't know.
Led by Bob Clarkson on early Veloset.
Aye.
Yep, there's actually there is a photograph of Bob leading the convoy back up to the stadium.
Dear me, lovely.
So what day was that, Phil? The first one, was it Thursday? Was it they had the early races?
Yes. Well, they used to practice on.
It's Wednesday and Thursday, wasn't it?
They used to practice on Tuesday and Wednesday, and the racing was on Thursday afternoon.
Yeah. So is that really why that they stuck to that sort of format over the years, do you think?
That's why we stuck to it, yes, because in fact we find it easier to get the top riders that we get midweek rather than weekends, because of course all the high finance races are on weekends. So we've kept it. It was difficult to get a slot at the weekend, so we've kept it in midweek.
Well, we were just discussing that before we come on air, and we were saying that we hope that never changes, because it's a tried and tested formula. I would hate it from that. It's a great, it's a unique way of doing it. I think years ago the Cookstown 100 used to be on a Wednesday night, the old Cookstown, but nothing stood the test of time. Like the
That's right. No, the Cookstown has changed. I can remember the old Cookstown 100 because, of course, Nigel Warren actually won that one year.
He did, indeed.
Yeah, he did.
65, 67, it was around there.
Yeah.
That was a very old course. Was that out by the, it wasn't even the Sherry Groom, when they come down the main street?
They came right down the main street, that was it, and took a sharp right and off out into the country again.
That's right.
It was.
Is that the one that was on the telly where there was pubs down the main street on either side, and it wasn't unknown to see somebody say, "Oh, I think I'll just nip across for a pint."
That's it.
On the side.
That's it.
Yeah.
Indeed.
That would probably be a unique thing as well. No pubs around the coast.
Well,
never has been, has it?
Well, there was. Initially, the Castletown Brewery in the first year put a beer tent up in the stadium. And if you look at that photograph of Derek Ennett coming around Stadium Corner, you can see the ale tent in the background. And of course, the only pub, Castletown Football Club, have a bar license, so it's still there. You can't actually get a beer at the stadium.
God, we're learning something new every day.
There was a bell tent. Castletown Brewery had a bell tent for the bar, and I can remember that being behind the grandstand at the start and finish line when, of course, the grandstand was on the railway line side, and that was for the VIPs. There was a chap called Bob Conway. He was a great supporter of the Southern Motorcycle Club. They have something called the Conway Shield. They still have the Conway Shield for trials riding. Well, he was a guest of honour, and he spent the entire race in the bell tent. And I was one of the ones that helped pick him up, complete with chair, and put him in the back of Bob Clarkson's car to take him home.
Dear me. Yeah, fabulous. Were you there? Well, obviously we're compatible ages. Were you there right from the very start, Tubby, getting involved?
I remember seeing the first race, so I wasn't involved in the first race. We didn't know what the fellas were doing around the course, putting the barriers and the ropes and things up on the first year. And of course, then when the race happened on the Wednesday and Thursday, we saw that in the evening. But of course, we had to go to school then on the Thursday. It wasn't until the following year that they gave us the afternoon off school. So yeah, I was involved totally from 1956. I saw the first one, was involved in the practicing of it, but I've been in every other one since. I don't think I've missed one.
No, you wouldn't.
I think if we can just mention to lots of people will understand about the fact that Southern 100, originally the 500 class, was a 24 laps because it was a 100-mile road race, which follows the same as the Irish races. All the old road races were 100 miles, but was it until 1961, something like that. The 500 was 24 laps. That was a long race too.
It was, yeah. It was indeed a long race. That was the reason why it's got the name, of course, because it was 100 miles. The 250 and the 350 didn't do as many. I think that they both did 12 laps apiece, but the big race was 12 laps.
I think they cut the laps to 18 so they could fit a sidecar race in. Was that 1962 or something like that? 61?
I think it's round about right. It's in the early 60s.
Yeah, 61 or 2, I think it was.
Yeah.
Some good men over for that too, weren't there? Charlie Freeman, Chris Vincent.
Yeah.
It was indeed.
Straight away attracted them. I
don't know why, but we've always attracted top guys. I mean, when you go back to the 1950s and think of all the top stars, Alistair King and Bob Mack and all those other guys, they all wanted to be here.
Yeah, Terry Shepherd, Ron Langston,
Phil Reed. They were TT winners at the time when
they were. Yeah.
Other event.
I remember Phil Reed bringing that Honda over and going like the wind. He was passing guys coming down the bypass here who'd been in top about 200 yards after the Castletown Bridge, flat on the tank, giving it all they were worth, and he was just nicking it at the top as he went over the Dumb River here. It was amazing. Yeah, it was good.
John Hartle, was it?
Yeah, on the Honda.
Yeah.
Honda 62. I know. I remember Uncle Jack getting all excited. I think we made the quickest journey ever down that night. We had a few things with getting dragged down. That's people say, well, how did you get it to all these races? But as soon as you mentioned Jeff Cannell and Uncle Jack, and Jeff being 5-6 years older than me, I would be, in that time, I would be 8 or 9. So he would be kind of a teenager. And it was always a case of getting bundled in. Not always. But I remember one night coming down, I think this was the night, we had a bit of a race. It must have been, I think, is one thing about TT riders and these fellas, maybe taxi drivers might be included as well, but they just go quick all the time, haven't they? They don't have an off button. And apparently Tony Jeffries is an absolute lunatic in a car. He just floors it to the boards and away. So we got down because John Hartle had been going round in the afternoon on a Lambretta scooter, learning the course or circuit, and then wheeled out a Works Honda 4 for that particular occasion. And the sound of it, you could hear it from when it fired up on the bypass to when it finished on the bypass. Every gear change he made and all the way around. Yeah, memorable moment, that one.
It was a bit special.
Certainly.
But lucky man getting down there like that. I was saying this week, what a job we had to get there. I mean, Williston and Castletown are not that far apart these days, but when your parents don't drive, can't afford to. I had to pick one night to go down.
It was the same for us. It was the same for us fellas here, though. When we went to the TT and the Grand Prix, I can remember going with my brothers on the train, getting the train into Douglas and walking up to the grandstand.
Yeah. That's how it was. And they were much bigger distances than what they appear to be now.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, they were.
It was two buses, and I had to pick Tuesday or Wednesday night, and I liked the Wednesday night because you had your 12-lap 250 race, your 12-lap 350 race, and your 12-lap, eventually it was a 750 race. And that was a great night, great entertainment. But then the year I picked to go down to watch the karts and the sidecar races, it absolutely lashed with rain. And it was fantastic. 1973. And I thought, well, we might get down tomorrow night, but we didn't get down. And I missed the 1973 solo races. I listened to it on the wireless at home. And you know what I missed? John Newbold got the Newcomers Award in the 250 race that year.
Yeah.
John Newbold. And then, of course, we'd heard of him, but it was only in later years he became a top Grand Prix rider. And was he top 3 in the TT? I think he was as well.
Yeah, John Newbold, certainly was.
A lot of people say, oh, John Newbold never done the Southern 100. I said, oh, yes, he did. He got the Newcomers down there. I missed that particular one, yeah.
Yeah, we were down in the early days when it was Phil Reed and Alan Shepherd. And we put a photo on today, and I said, I'll tell you the explanation to it tonight. And it was the reason we went to Cross Four Ways when we were going down initially. It was with probably the old man's taxi or Uncle Jack's car at the time. He changed them every other week. But at later stages, I got taken down in the Nobles Hospital ambulance, and that was always parked at Cross Four Ways. It's the Phil Hogg ambulance now that's on duty there, but it was the actual Nobles Hospital one. So my early days spectating were down at Cross Four Ways, and that particular race, I think it was 61 that was shown on the Facebook. And it was Alan Shepard and Phil Reed who dead heated in the 350. And in the 500 on the matchless, Alan Shepard was leading Phil Reed on the Norton. But coming into Cross Four Ways, we were looking, craning our necks on the right, at the left-hand side of the road as they were coming in. Next thing, the bike came into view, but that Alan Shepard on it was sliding down the road. And what had happened was he'd been under severe braking, cable brakes on the G50 for Cross Four Ways, and the front brake cable snapped, and he lost all the braking and couldn't control it. And Jeff, I think, had gone off to watch at Church Ben's, and he couldn't believe it when he came back and saw Alan Shepard sitting in the front of the ambulance with having been attacked. He wasn't badly hurt, but that was the reason where we said today, if they'd have changed the front brake cable, maybe he would have had the 500 win. Reed went. Yeah, so that's a story from Cross Four Ways.
Well, tell us this. Oh, go on, Hailey, go on.
I'll just share some comments with you, and I'll leave you to continue the chat. You've got some pictures here as well, which we will share with everyone this evening. We've had Pete Forsyth saying good evening. All will miss not getting that boat this weekend and over this year. Sean Hogg says best meeting of the year, fond memories of the Southern 100. Barry, no sexy shorts on tonight.
They actually are. Look, they're out in sight, and that's where they're staying.
We'll see, Sean. We'll see. Damien Haran says, hello from Ireland. The Southern 100 is one I've always wanted to have a race, but maybe next year. Yes, Damien, get it booked, get it planned. And Brian Spooner says, you're a great clerk of the course at the Manx. Jules Liz, thank you for tagging your friends in. Keep it coming in. Keep your questions coming in your comments. We love to hear where you're tuning in from. The boys are here for the next half hour. We do have some pictures to show you and many more Southern 100 memories. Boys, I'll leave you to it.
I was going to ask you about traditionally the presentation event on the Thursday evening. And I remember reading in the L programs, it said that if the weather is bad, it'll be in the pavilion in Janet Corner.
That's
when
correct.
we actually had a function in that building.
I can't remember the time. We've definitely been once anyway.
We've been more than once. I can remember being in there at least twice. There was a chap called Morris Hawthorne. Yes, Morris Hawthorne used to race, and Morris would come over here for the TT, living in the back of his van, living rough. He went to work at Russian Abbey picking strawberries for the jam making at Russian Abbey all summer until the Southern 100 was on, and then he would go back after the Southern. But Morris, in his escapades around the island, managed to kill a cow at Santon and was hauled up before the courts. And the fella who was in charge that day was T.G. Moore, who, of course, was the president of the Southern Motorcycle Club at the time. And T.G. Moore was presenting the prizes that year for the Southern 100. And Morris went up to get his finisher's award, and T.G. held his hand out, and he says, "No, I'm not shaking your hand. You just fined me £50 today." Yeah. But that was actually in the pavilion at Janet's Corner.
Right. So how many times would you reckon it was used over the years? Half a dozen then, maybe?
No, I wouldn't have thought that many. 2 or 3, maybe.
A couple of 3, certainly. And there was one held in, I don't know if you remember, in Castletown Civic Centre one year. We had to move in very quickly because it did actually rain hard on the night. Yes, and we ushered everybody in.
It's part and parcel of why anybody around Castletown who's in business is so grateful for the meeting. With all the activity that is, the people tend to stay loyal to the south, don't they?
Yes. it's very much a family affair. It's a very much a community event. Has been from day one. We get all the locals involved. We get sponsorship from all the local shops. They don't give us a fortune, but they just like to be involved because a couple of £100 here, a couple of £100 there, which all helps to make the race work. Yeah, it's very much a local event.
I remember seeing an advert in the old programs, one of the news agents that said if anybody wants the paper delivering around the tent in the paddock, they would do that. Do you remember that happening as well?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, and I'll tell you something else I remember from it when I was a young boy going for the first time in very early 70s. Program sellers at the roadside. I remember coming into Ballasalla and then coming round into by whatever you call them, by where K&L Gardens used to be.
Oh yeah, yeah.
There were young people with piles of programs. You could pull your car in and buy a program off them, and that was so exciting. Do you remember that happening?
Can you? Yeah. I can't really.
I can.
Yeah.
I actually,
he's older than me, though.
That's how I started. Apart from putting the course together with the men, and that was not to a love of motorbikes. That was just to get a ride in the back of the wagon and be charging around like hooligans in the back of the wagon. Yeah. But on race days and practice and race days, I was selling programs on the bypass. I've walked up in Castletown bypass over the years, thousands of times, I imagine, but hundreds of times selling programs for the Southern 100. Then when I got more involved, we got the Boy Scouts. The Boy Scouts were able to walk around the course, all around the course, on the pavements, selling programs. It was the way to do it. But today, health and safety come in, and that's all finished.
It's all gone now.
Yeah, that's well of the past, isn't it?
Yeah,
it is indeed.
Oh, good one.
But of course, coming down on the bus in those days as well, it was no surprise to have race bikes passing you on the Richmond.
That's right.
Like that. And even before the helmet law came in, you'd see mechanics riding the bike from Douglas to Castletown, race bikes. It's,
yeah. The way the Road Races Act worked in them days, you were covered to ride your bike 1 hour before the roads closed and 2 hours afterwards. That was to get you down here and get you home again. Mm-hmm. It was the same for the TT and the Grand Prix as well, of course. You had an hour before and 2 hours after to be able to ride and not have to comply with the road traffic laws. It's still the same, I believe, now, except that you must have the minimum of third-party insurance to enable you to do that. Otherwise, you are breaking the law.
Yeah. Well, I used to ride down from, not to the Southern 100, but down to the paddock from home with the race bike. That was the way we always did it. Because I couldn't drive. None of us could drive. Like, I remember being on the bus, the great excitement as a young fella on the Castletown bus, a red bus, which is an excitement anyway, road services, and hearing race bike coming from behind and everybody standing up and looking out the window, and then those programs to tell you who it was. Very
in the early years,
really, but that's how it was.
In the early years, you could actually come down on the train as well, because we used to stop the train behind the race control.
I heard that now, yes.
Yeah.
And people get off there. People get off on the bypass and make their own cross. Yeah, there wouldn't be any problem crossing the road either. I wouldn't have thought.
No, not in them days. It wasn't.
There was a lovely story about Ron Langston. I don't know where I've got it from, but it was pretty factual. That he actually stayed at Church Ben's with a fella called Varden.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
They were fettling the bikes and they were a bit late getting to bed, or there was activity and they overslept. And the story goes that when they heard the first bikes going through, I think Barry's got some stories about early morning practices and what have you. I mean, there wasn't too many out. When they heard the first bikes going through, his mechanic and him jumped up and said, "Oh God, we're late. We're going to miss it." So they did nothing else but then get the race bikes. The mechanic rode one, Ron rode the other, and rode them from Church Ben's through to the paddock, got them scrutiny in, and then set off for practice. And the Varden fellow was quite a well-known man. Well, his brother was in the golfing circles.
All right.
The Varden grip is one that we still use today, where you cross over.
I've heard of that too.
And just a bit of just a bit of information from the women. I've just been reminded by seeing Barry's legs that Kentucky Fried Chicken are building a new unit down in Peel Road.
Very opportune that was.
So he is here in shorts, I can assure you.
Not in the taxi, though.
Not in the Oh, there we go. There's the dead heat, 61. Yeah, unanimous decision.
Yeah, I was sat on the line that day with a friend of mine who only, I'd be 12 or something like that. But definitely a dead heat.
Definitely.
He couldn't split them.
No. Yeah.
It said in the book lots of people had their own opinions on it. But
Yeah, but half of them thought one had won, the other half thought the other had won. So,
that was a bit like Ray McCulloch and Tony Rutter, wasn't it? All the Irish people said, "Oh, Ray definitely won that," but the visitor said Tony Rutter won it. But
yeah.
My eye in those days,
Yeah,
that's very close.
It is close, isn't it?
Yeah.
Heading down there, and not the bypass as it was. No sign of your PA system there, Tubby.
Well, I wasn't doing the PA then. In fact, it was being done by T.H. Colburns in those days.
Yeah, with the big speakers.
That's right. And in fact, he was the first patron of the Southern 100, T.H. Colburn, because believe it or not, when they went to the government to get money to run the races, they refused to give us any money. They said, there's enough racing in June and September. We don't need racing in the middle of the summer. And they wouldn't support it. And it was actually T.H. Colburn who put up, I think it was £200 to enable us to run the races, or to enable the club then to run the races.
Yeah. And Derek Ennett and Terry Shepherd, the first two winners.
They were?
Yeah.
Did Derek win the 250 as well? Who won the 250?
He won the 350, I think.
I know he won the 350. I can't remember who won the 250.
Yeah, I think Patrick. Yeah. Patrick or somebody.
John Patrick won in 1960.
60 was it?
I don't think John Patrick was in the first one.
No. Front Purcell won an early one, but it wasn't the first one.
Yeah.
250s. Yeah. Phil Reid at that particular time, though, was kind of more popular than he became later on, wasn't he? He was one.
Yes.
Did I put that diplomatically? And
just get up that fence.
It was really good, that, Roy.
Yeah, it was.
It was good for the club to get him in those days, because a couple of years after he'd gone on the World Championship trail, and that was the end of that, wasn't it? So it was good to get him in those early days. Yeah. He
did come back. We actually had him here for our 40th anniversary. He did come back, and they all had rides around the circuit. And I think some of them came back for the 50th as well.
Yeah, moving on though, when you think about those that are involved, like when Joey and all that, but prior to that, Barry's hero was one who came over, and it always amazes me when you say it that he was quite happy to come over to ride in the Southern, but never did the TT. Ray McCulloch. He flew around.
Yeah.
Well, Ray was fantastic around there, but he didn't make it too long.
Is his bike coming weekend?
Stand that. And I can't tell you how many he won, but he was a former championship winner as well on the Thursday afternoon.
Yeah, he won the championship. Yeah. He's an exceptional rider. In this one, him and Joey, we had the stamps done for our 50th anniversary, I think. They were the two who featured on them.
That's right.
Yeah.
But
were you boys involved in the Mal Carter when Haslam came over?
Yeah, well, he was. It's his fault.
Yeah, I refused to let him ride.
You were the person who let him go.
It was the first year I was clerk of the course, and I was abiding by the rules.
Good lad.
I was a bit more lenient once I knew the ropes better, but at that time I had to. No practice, no race, very sorry. And he split the dummy and put the bike back in the van and cleared off and took Bill Smith with him. And
Bill Smith, he wouldn't let ride.
Oh, it was Bill Smith I wouldn't let ride, that was right.
Bill turned up late and he hadn't practiced and he wanted to race.
That was it.
And Mal Carter said if he doesn't race, I'm taking Ron Haslam home. So they did.
Well,
got pictures of him practicing and everything, but he didn't actually race around here.
I stuck to my guns and said, no, he doesn't. Take him home.
But the club made 100% the right decision. But just for those first few laps of practice, when Ron did get out there, he
was good.
Never forget that spectacle. And there's some photographs of him on the
That's right.
And the bypass with his long hair streaming at the back, and like his vertical. And you're always wondering what he may have achieved. But I know at the time, lots of people said, "Oh, I don't like Haslam doing that," because he did crash a lot in those days. And the thought of Haslam at the line was quite scary, really.
Yeah.
But
I mean, what's his name? Phil Haslam used to come here quite often, and he was exceptional as well. I mean, I used to marshal to Iron Gate, and you know, every lap. It'd be exactly the same, a bit like Selwyn. It'd be like quarter of an inch from the gutter, but every lap would be quarter of an inch from the gutter. You know, he was just spot on.
Well, the very first time I saw Phil Haslam at the Manx Grand Prix as a newcomer in 1972, early morning practice, and he with the white jackets on and those days, and I remember looking at him and queuing up for practice in the early morning, and he just looked so determined. There was something about him, you know. The fair hard with the street lights shining on it. I never forgot that. And of course, he didn't have too much luck the first year, but the following year was when he got the first 100-mile-an-hour lap.
That's right, yeah.
So did he get a third or a fourth in the Southern as well? He got a good run down there.
He was certainly in the top 6 2 or 3 times, because I think he used to race a Norton Commando or something like that.
It was,
yeah.
I think that was the year I went on the Tuesday night.
Right. Oh, you missed something then, Barry.
Yeah.
How did you get on later years with the likes of Guy Martin and Blair Degerholm? And
I mean, Guy was no problem at all. He used to turn up on the day. He'd ring up and say his entries in the post. He'd fill it in here on the day, and that was it. Like,
yeah.
But he didn't like to fuss anything, you know. That's why I don't think he liked the TT. He used to purposely wind the TT up by saying it was only a practice for the Southern 100, and I think he used to just do that to get the TT officials mad, like, you know.
And your Michael Dunlops and William Dunlops and Joe going on.
The whole Dunlop family were being brilliant all the way through.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
it's the fact that they came back year after year proves how popular it is.
Yeah.
If you didn't like it, you don't have to do it. But these fellas, you know.
Yeah. You know, like I say, we're lucky now that, like, you know, we've got Dean Harrison and Michael Dunlop are probably 2 of the best 3 TT riders going at the moment anyway. So, and then with the sidecar class, we've probably got as good a field as you see anywhere in the world for, you know, sidecar racing. I think we've had, in the last sort of 5 or 6 years, we've had 4 world champions or something, or 4 people who've been world champions who've won the Southern 100 races. And then you've got, you know, people like the Crows and Molly and all as well, you know, just exceptional, the sidecars.
Well, Steve Webster came over too, didn't he, before he became...
That's right, yeah.
And he did the TT. I don't think he started the race. He crashed, I think, in practice out 13th milestone somewhere. But certainly we had a quick word with him a couple of years back, not name dropping or anything. I was just wanted his autograph and said about it. And he said, well, I got dragged into the World Championship stuff. He said, probably after doing the Southern and realizing, you know, what road racing was about, he said, I probably could have done quite well at the TT, but other directions took him away. He always remembered. I said, well, your first road down the Southern. He said, oh, yeah, it was good down there.
But didn't he break the absolute sidecar record at that time? Webster about 94 or something like that.
Stood for years.
He diced with Tony Baker. And I think Tony Baker beat him in the original race, but Webster got the fastest lap. I've got a photograph of the two of them. Must be mum. The two of them together at Castledown Corner. It was a right good scrap.
Yeah. Yeah, that memorable cross four ways with Tim Reed.
Yeah, Mr. Reeves and the Virtuals.
What was the reaction when you were kind of listening in and saying, "Oh my goodness, what's
well,
that?"
it was a bit funny, really, because the Virtuals were more upset because they decided in the end because they couldn't ascertain the blame, they both got disqualified, and because they both got disqualified in the ACU rules, any previous laps can't count as a lap record. So they weren't very happy about that. So they didn't come for a couple of years. But they were, funny enough, we were originally, when we were hoping to run it this year, they were on the phone wanting to know if it was on because they'd like to come back. So fingers crossed they'll come back, like, you know. But it was nothing we could do. It was in the ACU rules that if you disqualified, that's it. You're null and void from the event, sort of thing.
Oh dear.
So I think the rules have changed again now, so that it wouldn't have happened. But it was just at that particular time, that's what the rules stated. So,
S100 was always very popular with the sidecar crews. Anyway, I was looking at a program from the early '80s, and there was something like 61.
That's right. Yeah. So we used to have
numbers and even number races.
Yeah. There we go.
That's your even numbers there. So you got eight travel.
Yeah.
I can't remember all the passengers here. I know we've been in Lumber before, for not mentioning passengers, but 16 Larry Burton, 14 was Artie and Etta Oates. You can just see it.
Put my glasses on.
That was the even numbers, and then of course you had the odd numbers. Was
that's right, and in those days we used to start everybody by their race numbers, and that used to cause quite a lot of problems. Initially, when the S100 started, they used to do it on timing, but then I don't know what happened. The timekeepers decided they weren't going to bother timing the practices anymore. So basically, if we gave somebody number 1, they'd start in the front row of the grid, and if we gave them number 40 or 50 or 80 or whatever, they'd be near the back of the grid. And you used to always get people coming in complaining that, you know, I was going round and I overtook this fella and he's starting 3 rows ahead of me. So fortunately, we've gone back to time practice probably 15 years ago, maybe a bit more. And it's made it so much easier for people. Nobody ever comes in the hut moaning now about, being overtaken by somebody else. Everybody knows the score and it's not a problem.
Well, was it not a case in the early 60s that there was a bigger than usual sidecar entry and they started them in 5-second intervals? Phil, do you remember that?
One year they had a handicap race. I think that was all. I don't think they started at 5-second intervals. I could be wrong.
I think it was the only time it was ever mentioned. There was that many in it. I'm not now, but I think it was back in the days of Fred Wallace and people like that.
Yeah, I know they had a handicap race, but somebody good broke down on the first lap, and he started at the front, and the other good fellas were a lap and a half behind, and they never seen him again. So it got scrapped after that. It was only tried the 1 year, and it never really worked.
Did you ever think, George, that come this particular time, like 2020, when you were getting involved in that you would have a son-in-law as a S100 winner?
No, not at all. I mean, he's a great, he's had lots of S100 victories and solos and in the classic bikes, so I must admit, and in one respect, I was quite glad when he retired, because I didn't, I wouldn't want to see him going on, and he's not the sort of fella who likes to finish 3rd or 4th or 5th. If he's not in with a chance to win, and which is fair enough, he doesn't want to know, he's very competitive. So
yeah. For those who might not be familiar, it's Chris Palmer.
Yeah.
Palmer, your son-in-law, but he's a great help, isn't he?
Oh yeah, and obviously his wife, my daughter, she's the the club secretary now. She's taken over from me, basically, keeping us all in order.
Seems strange, isn't it? Past winner sleeping with the club secretary. What we got to look forward to at the weekend, because we just make everybody jealous about the big day on Saturday.
Oh yeah, yes.
My apologies, I can't make it. It's one of those things that crops up, and I'm not going to.
Cup, is it?
Yeah, well, I've played at the Douglas Golf Club Championship since 1964.
Oh, well.
Yeah. Played at 11:15, so too early to go down for the first bit and too late to go down for the second bit.
Yeah.
My apologies.
Good luck on that anyway, Roy.
I won't be a contender there. I'll be.
You never know. If Cavendish can do it, you can make the comeback, surely.
Yeah. There's a slight difference.
Yeah.
What have we got to look forward? What's Barry got to look forward to on Saturday?
Well, I'll be down there with yes.
Yeah, we've got a large selection of bikes. We've got Dean Harrison's TT winning bike and Brian Reed's RG 500, the one that done the mile-an-hour lap round here. There's a bike coming over from Ireland that Brian Reed won one of the TTs on. Somebody's bringing that over. We've got a Rotary Note, and we've got the 250 Honda, which was the Halewood thing, which I believe makes a fantastic noise. So it'll bring back the John Hartle memories, hopefully. And we got the Dan Neen, the bike that he won the Ulster Grand Prix on. We got quite a lot of our competitors all coming down with their race bikes as well. We've got, I think we've got about 60 different stalls and all together. So most of them are race teams. And then there's quite a lot of interest in the bike show side of it. We've got Dale Fordman's been sorting that out, and he's got I think there's 10 different classes, £50 for the winner of each class and £100 for the overall winner. So if somebody turns up with a cracking bike, they can go home with 150 quid. Nice. So that can't be seized, that.
Yeah, and there's trials demonstrations during the day. Michael Owen is bringing the juniors down doing trials demonstrations. Yeah. And of course, we've got the world famous purple helmets at speeds approaching 100 mile an hour in the field. Yeah. We've got a display arena, which will be things happening all day.
Yeah, so it should be a good day. So
Bill Christian this afternoon, Derry. He's well geared up for it. I was looking at it. He's done hundreds of pounds worth of damage to it to make it look like the other bikes.
Yeah. Well, Chris is bringing a selection of cars down as well that they've used as roads open cars here during the year. They'll have bits of write-ups on to say when they were used. So there's that.
Yeah, and we're getting there's meant to be some very rare classic cars coming down. One that was in the original 39 Steps film and various other 1912 cars and all sorts of stuff. So it's going to be well worth a look, for all different sort of reasons.
Are we getting 700 hot dogs?
2 right.
Yes.
Yeah.
700 burgers and hot dogs, they'll be on display.
Yeah.
Yes.
Lots of people getting involved in the chat here, and I haven't shared with them for a while because I've been enjoying the chat so much myself. Thank you, George and Tubby. Thank you so much for your time. I've loved listening to all of you, with our boys as well on here sharing your memories. Some people on here have been commenting, also sharing their memories as well. Bill Davey said, first of all, can I just say George and Phil are the absolute soul of the Southern, and long may it continue. Thank you, Bill Davey. Christian Hirsch says, hello from Austria. The Southern 100 is a great meeting, and hopefully we will see you there next year. John Kashirski is learning so much from the stories that you were sharing. It's just amazing, he says. Sean Hogg says, what year did the karts finish on the Southern 100?
Good question, Sean.
It would be in the very early 70s, I think. I can't remember the exact date, but I think it was very early.
They were very quick. I think they were quicker than the 250s round the Southern at one time, which, you know, took some going when you think he was riding the 250s.
Yeah. They were in the early 70s, but they come back for 1 year as well, about 77, something like that. They had a car.
They did, yeah.
It's around Williston course as well, like on the Saturday. Yeah. Well, that was about it.
Yeah, it was a bit too bumpy for them, I think. There was wheels flying off everywhere.
Falling off all the way around,
yeah. Carts going over hedges everywhere as well. So
I saw three chains broke on carts, one after the other. That was quite scary. Chains towards the crowd and things, you know. It's interesting.
Yeah. We've got Brian Spooner here saying, brilliant stories, gents. Mick Chatterton, hello to you. He's there with Christine and Kenny Arthur this evening enjoying the show, and they've got lots of happy memories of the Southern 100. First time camping in the bull ring. Andy Cruz says, don't know much on the Southern 100 history. Learned so much from this tonight. Thank you, gentlemen. And John Gashirski says, Southern 100, 60 years of the friendly races. Get this, Andy, from Duke video. And Andy Cruz says, I've watched and know the usual bits and bobs, but it's the memories from these two stalwarts of the club that you can't get anywhere else. Absolutely. And lots of hellos and appreciation for the conversations and the memories being shared. Brian and Spooner says, is Barry Wood a purple helmet rider?
Oh, something like that, but no, no.
Guest appearance, maybe?
Yeah. Excellent.
I've managed to get it out of my system, but I will appear, but not on the purple helmet. Thank you very much.
It's an interesting poll. Is it Finn? You could potentially take Finn's job.
Yeah. He's too thin.
I think I'll too fast.
The world famous purple helmets listed. So thank you, George and Tubby. We really appreciate your time this evening and coming from the great committee officers down there as well as Southern 100 officers. Thank you for your commitment. So many years of commitment to the to the committee. You haven't even had a bushies yet. And your time, your energy and your commitment for keeping this event going. So many people on here appreciating it, and long may it continue, as Bill said that earlier. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Hailey. It's much appreciated.
Thanks, guys. It's been good.
Roy and Barry as well. Fantastic Facebook and all you do. It's brilliant.
Thank you very much, gents.
Thank you.
And thank you to Rachel for setting you up as well. With
yeah. We wouldn't have been here otherwise.
We definitely wouldn't have been here without Rachel. No.
We still got a lot of pigeons down the castle there.
Next time you can come there and set up with us up.
Toby and George, thank you. All the best at the weekend. Have a great one.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks
Take
a
care.
lot. Okay. Goodbye.
You could have gone on for hours there, couldn't you, boys?
Oh, aye. We haven't even started yet.
Yeah, just warming up.
You sort of sidetrack yourself with things, you know, but there's I had so much I wanted to say. I'm sure you did as well, Roy.
Yeah,
the time runs away so fast.
Like. Yeah, I didn't get many photos on. It's just that's the way it should be.
Yeah. Didn't even get a chance to ask a question this week.
No,
I had one lined up.
Did you have one lined up?
I don't think any of you three would have got it right. Like,
no, well, you'll be all right.
Yeah.
We've got Linny Ritzy saying, another fantastic show. Thank you for your knowledge. Andy Garouche says, Barry can't play the piano, so we can't stand in for that part, but maybe Methane Man.
I used to pick him up in the taxi regularly, that fella, and I know him well. I see it.
Great. And Brian Spooner says, thanks, Hailey, the boys. John Kashirski says, we need a 6-hour show. Yes, we do, John. Well, Royster, you're going to miss this weekend. I'm sure it's going to miss you as well, but all the best for your golfing.
Yeah, well, it's just one of those things. I explained it to Derry Kiswick today, and they've got a good show lined up for you down there on Saturday. I think it's at 3:00 they're on. But with all that's been mentioned, it's going to be, let's just hope the weather is good. We don't want any bad weather when all that activity is going to be on. And certainly the trials team, being involved, knowing quite a bit about that. The girl that they sponsor, is it Caitlin Adshead? She just made the podium in the Girls World Trials Championship. Okay. And Michael Owen and her dad took them all the way down to Italy to ride in that. And certainly no mean achievement. When you think of the size of the Isle of Man and go worldwide with all that's happening with Mark Cavendish and all that, we've got a lot to answer for, really, haven't we, us Manx fellas?
We absolutely have. And Barry, it sounds like it's going to be quite a special event on Saturday, doesn't it? There's all sorts going on.
There's lots going on, and there's lots of people coming over, which I said all along. Once people are allowed to come, they will come. I know lots of people who are coming. Just because they always come here. And over the years, they have a lot of friends here, and maybe just to have a run around the island, have a run around the course and whatever. So I think that the committee will be surprised just how many people are down there. The downside is it has mentioned in the 5-day forecast showers for Saturday, but that can be wrong, of course. We'll obviously go with it. It'll be the crack is the important thing. And yeah, it's what you make it, and it'll be a great day. I guarantee that.
Brilliant. So, gents, thank you so much. Another great show. I had a fantastic time sat there listening to you. It was brilliant. So really, really appreciate it. Thank you. And all the best for the weekend. Enjoy. And I'll speak to you very soon.
Cheers, Hailey.
Cheers, Hailey. Back to the grandstand.
Thank you, everyone that tuned in. Thank you for your comments, your contributions. Bev Smith said, can't wait to get back to the island. Vanessa Greenfield Gillen says, brilliant. John Kościerski says, we'd love some autographs on the riders there. Absolutely. Bill Davies saying, I'm sitting here applauding the whole show. Thanks again. Thank you, Bill. Thank you for all your comments and your questions as well. Andy Cruz saying, thank you as ever. Wonderful memories. Linny Ritzy and your memories as well. Brilliant. Thank you, Linny. Thank you, every single one of you, for tuning in. Remember, if you joined in late, don't you worry. The replay is available. If you know anybody that missed it, that will enjoy the show, send them the link, get them involved, and I'm sure we'll see you again here soon. This was episode 12 of Mountain Memories. I'm Hailey Coxon on the Spirit of Motorsport TV.